and we're going to have light to moderate ice accumulation. So the crux of the forecast has not changed. With that, let's get into things. I've got a bunch of maps and stuff I want to show you, and this is something that we've not shown a lot through this week. This is a very cool product from the National Weather Service that is called the Winter Storm Severity Index. So, as it sounds like, they created an index that factors in all sorts of stuff. Temperature, how cold is it going to get, what type of precipitation, all sorts of stuff. And they say, okay, is this a minor, moderate, major, or extreme storm? And I think this is spot on. This is a moderate storm for most of us. And what that means is primarily travel disruptions for us. So many people are asking me, like, is this a repeat of the ice storm of late January, early February of 2023? It is not going to be like that. It is definitely not going to be a repeat of 2021. In fact, I'm going to show you some graphics to show you what happened in those two storms and how different this is going to be. So it's not going to be like that. But slick travel, absolutely fair game, especially elevated bridges and overpasses. And look, scattered power outages are a possibility. And one of the trends we've seen today, so red is major, most of us are the moderate. And look, that does show up here over parts of the hill country especially, and I wouldn't be surprised if maybe that grows a little bit more. I'll show you some of these ice totals here in a second, but some scattered power outages will be a possibility. So hopefully everybody has made their hard freeze preps. Obviously it is going to get very cold. We're going to go down below freezing. Some areas for as much as like 48 to 72 hours over parts of the hill country. And then as far as like, what about the precip? Obviously, we're advising if you can, just stay off the roads this weekend. A lot of the day, especially in Austin tomorrow, I think it's not going to have major travel issues, but I do expect it to get icy, especially in the evening of Saturday, into Saturday night, and then Sunday, because temperatures are going to be likely staying below freezing for many areas. I think it could stay icy through Sunday and probably into Monday morning too. Okay, so a winter storm warning remains in effect. In fact, this shows you where the confidence is at in the forecast. They've expanded it. We were the southern tier. They've expanded it down even farther south. So now it includes Bexar County and San Antonio. In these darker purple, that is what's called an ice storm warning. So that would be the step up from the winter storm warning. Mainly they issue those for high confidence in more than a quarter inch of ice. I'm not guaranteeing it. It would not surprise me if maybe at some point tomorrow parts of the hill country get upgraded to that based on some of the new data which is coming in. So again, for us, mainly thinking it's not changed. 1/10 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch of icing is in the forecast, basically area wide. And I think isolated amounts, especially in the hill country and over parts of Williamson County and Northwest Travis could be included in this too. Potential for some amounts that would be 1/4 of an inch up to a 1/2 inch or so, and some sleet is also going to be possible, but mainly this is going to be an icing event for us. Now, this is not the time frame for the most likely changeover, but this is the earliest possible icy impacts. The main event, I'm confident, is going to be Saturday evening into Saturday night. But if you're just like, I have just no tolerance for this, I don't want even any exposure at all to icy roads, this is the earliest possible. For the hill country, Northwest Travis and Williamson County, the earliest possible would be late tonight into Saturday morning. For the more core of the Austin metro, earliest possible would be Saturday morning into the mid-afternoon. Coastal Plains, earliest possible would be Saturday afternoon into the evening. Again, that's earliest possible. Just I want to be clear, not most likely. The main event is definitely going to be during the second part of the day. The cold front has moved through. It's pretty amazing. I mean, as a forecaster, like I've been looking at quite literally at every single model run constantly, all day, every day for several days now. And then now the system's here. So the cold front has moved through again, maybe a little bit earlier than what some of the data was suggesting. It's 53 in Austin, San Antonio ahead of the front, 67. And this is just a crazy Texas map. It's 75 in Brownsville. It's 5 in Amarillo. 70-degree temperature swing. Dallas, obviously those areas having higher impact from definitely from snow and sleet, and they're going to have some pretty big time icing in these areas too. Not yet down to freezing, but they're getting close, so they're going to change over for tonight. Here's the radar picture right now. So before we get icy, we are going to get stormy. And the storms are developing over the hill country. And this is just one of those kind of bizarre setups. I know we're focused on the wintry precip, but it would not surprise me if there was a flash flood advisory maybe even a flash flood warning at some point overnight tonight into early tomorrow. I think we're going to have some heavy rain. We've been asking for rain for a long time now. As Mother Nature said, you said freezing rain, right? No, we want to rain. Anyway, we're ended up with the freezing variety. But first, it's going to be just plain old rain tonight. So wintry stuff starting to become more of an issue over in North Texas. Freezing rain, sleet, and snow, and this is going to be a big snow event, obviously, across the Red River for parts of Oklahoma. And then here's a look down closer to us. So again, I mentioned that we're in the nowcasting stage. Our temperatures are dropping, and they are cold already. I mean, it's 46 right now in Mason, 48 in Llano, 47 in Burnett, 49 in Georgetown. It would not surprise me at all if we're getting ready to do the 10 o'clock newscast and temperatures are already in the 30s in the hill country. And that's why even late tonight, we're going to have to watch these numbers in the hill country. This is a powerful front. It's 67 in Luling. It's 46 in Mason. There's a huge spread as this front is coming through. Here's our local radar right now. We've had mainly, it's kind of like a foggy, damp day, and we've had some rain showers around, but nothing too heavy. But again, you see the type of stuff that's developing. Oh, my tracker's not working. I don't have the tracker activated, but this is some pretty heavy stuff here over Gillespie County and Fredericksburg. And again, we do have, I guess I set the zoom. I didn't even need to telestrate. We do have the risk for a strong storm. I mean, look, there's lightning in here. I mean, this looks like maybe there could be a little small hail in there. I don't want to look past this either. I think a lot of people are going to wake up tonight and we're all thinking about the winter weather and you're going to hear like thunder and lightning. You're like, what is going on? We're going to have storms tonight. I have a 100% chance for rain and storms in my forecast tonight. And again, especially across the hill country, this could be heavy. Here's the flood outlook. So we're tracking like quite literally it's multiple seasons worth of weather in the span of like 12 hours. Flood risk, which is going to go mainly for the hill country, but it's level 1 out of 4 marginal risk for flash flooding. Okay, so with that, let's go into the model data. And again, we're kind of comparing to what does the data say and what's happening. So this is what the model is predicting at 10. It has Austin at 52 at 10, and we're already pretty close to that now. It's got Llano and Mason, low 40s. They're in the mid 40s now. So again, I think we could maybe outpace this a little bit. But either way, we're going to go into tonight, and we're going to have rounds of rain and storms that develop. And again, even as early as overnight tonight, especially in Mason and Llano County, temperatures drop down into the 30s. And again, freezing rain forecasts are complicated in many ways, but it's simple in one way. When the temperature goes down to 32, things start to freeze and rain becomes freezing rain. So that's going to happen. I mean, look, this is 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. It's below freezing here in these areas of the hill country. But I do think for the Austin area, and it's 39, and it's close in Austin, but it's mainly just cold rain. Even in the metro, though, there is an off chance if things really just drop really quick that maybe Northwest Travis, Western Wilco could have a little ice in the morning. It won't be the main event, but again, just if you're wondering what's the earliest possible that anything could get even remotely slick, it would be the morning tomorrow. And then we're going to go through the day. I think we get into a little bit of a lull as we go into, say, like late morning, early afternoon. It won't be dry, but that first big round is going to move out. We're going to be waiting on the second big round, which is going to come in during the late day tomorrow. But across the hill country, again, the things get going through the morning. So we're going to have some precip around, and temperatures are going to be right on that line. So this could be a light icing through the morning of tomorrow in the hill country. A lot of people have been asking about like various plans through the day on Saturday. And look, I mean, as a meteorologist, I can just tell you my plans. Like I'm going to stay here until 2:30 tonight, and Jordan's going to come in, and then I'm probably going to go home and I'm going to sleep. And my plan is to, drive into the TV station tomorrow in like the early afternoon. So that's my plan. I think a good chunk of the day, especially in Austin, is going to be cold and rainy and nasty, obviously, but probably not slick. I think that the main time frame where it really starts to get icy is going to start in the evening, like late afternoon into the evening. So if you really have stuff that you need to do, I don't think roads are going to be impassable during most of the day on Saturday in Austin. Now, as soon as you go Northwest Travis, as soon as you go Western Wilco into the hill country, this is where conditions I think will just It won't be immediately just terrible, but I think it'll just kind of get icier and icier through the day. So if you do have plans in the hill country in our western areas during the day, then that's going to be a situation you've got to assess a little bit more readily. But either way, as we keep going into 5 o'clock, at that point, again, temperatures drop down below freezing. So we go from 35, 34, 33 down to 32, 31, and that kicks things off. And we still have this light precipitation around. So as we get into the late afternoon of Saturday, this is going to be the switchover. So late afternoon into the evening, I think, is when things in Austin start to get icier, and will continue to get icy over the hill country. So here's 7 p.m. We'll go through it a couple hours at a time. This is 7 p.m. and we've got just this bigger wave of precip that comes in through the late evening and overnight. So again, this is what I'm talking about with this second main round. This is going to be it. So 9. It's 11 o'clock. We have freezing rain basically everywhere. And this mainly will be freezing rain. I think there will be some sleet mixed in too, but mainly I think this is an icing event from freezing rain. Then the last holdouts will be in Fayette County, but look, this is 11 p.m. and it's 33. I think even for those areas, look, it's going to go below freezing, and I think, we're kind of debating well, what exactly is this going to look like in our eastern areas? I think most, even down to the I-10 corridor, I think most end up in that 1/10 of an inch to a 1/4 of an inch range, which was described in the winter storm warning. So here's 1 a.m. I mean, we're in the 20s, and we have widespread freezing rain. Here's 3 a.m., widespread freezing rain. This is going to continue overnight, and I'm so glad that this is on a weekend into a Sunday morning. I do know, obviously, a lot of people have church plans or errands, stuff that you want to do on Sunday, but it's not like it's a Monday morning or Tuesday morning where everyone's trying to hit the roads. I'm happy that this is the weekend. But so here's 5:30, and then the precip's going to move out during the early morning hours of Sunday. Now, this model is very cold. It's coming in really cold, but honestly, I'm just looking at some of these trends and how this is playing out and look at the actual numbers right now to our north, and I don't know that we're necessarily quite this cold, but it probably is onto something here where we're in the 20s in Austin in the morning, but I mean it's in the teens over the hill country. And as we go through the first part of the day, we're done with precip, but especially if cloud cover lingers, it won't get above freezing. This model takes us through the afternoon and doesn't get us out of the 20s. I have 32 as my forecast high in Austin. I'll see how some of the additional evening data comes in. I mean, it could be even colder than that, but I guess the bigger point, though, is that most areas, especially in the hill country, won't get above freezing during the day on Sunday. So it will go below freezing tonight. It won't get above, for some of those areas, Saturday. Won't get above Sunday. For some of the hill country, I think it won't even get above Monday. So for the coldest pockets, it will be from tonight through midday on Tuesday that temperatures will be below freezing. So an extended hard freeze. Okay, so some of the model data, I'm going to show you my hand-drawn map, but this is the new graph model. So I just showed you the HRRR model. This is the graph model, just the straight-up ice accumulation that it's printing out. And again, it's got most of us in that 1/10 to a 1/4 of an inch range. And especially in the hill country, again, I buy this. It might even be a little bit more widespread than this, where we're going to have some pockets that do get into that 1/4 of an inch to a 1/2 inch type range, maybe even a little bit more than a 1/2 inch in a few spots. So here's my map. Again, I just kind of pretty simple, but in agreement with the winter storm warning, I think most areas end up in that 1/10 to a 1/4 of an inch range. And if we start getting sleet to mix in a little bit more widespread, then sleet could impact the totals, where maybe it's less of a glaze of ice and it's a little bit more sleet. But I do think primarily we're looking at freezing rain. And then I highlighted this area in Williamson County in northwest Travis and Hayes County back west into the hill country, where isolated amounts could be up to a 1/2 inch, as we mentioned. So maybe not everybody necessarily in that range, although increasingly. I'm going to take a look at the data, and I'll probably readdress this map before our 10 o'clock newscast, but I might add in a rung in there where we're explicitly forecasting 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch based on some of the data. But anywhere from a 1/2 inch to a 1/4 inch is at least what we're expecting, and some areas will be above that. And again, mainly freezing rain, but I do expect some sleet to happen too, so don't be surprised if you also get a light dusting of sleet, which obviously can be bad for travel conditions too. So here's the biggest thing when we're talking about freezing rain. even as a meteorologist, it's like, okay, we're going to have 1/10 of an inch of ice. It's like, what does that mean? Here's the breakdown of what it means with different ice accumulations. So we're thinking primarily about these two categories here. 1, 2. At least this, 1/10 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch. Your car is coated in ice. Bridges and elevated roads are icy, and there's thin ice on trees, so in some spots there could be a power outage, but generally in this range you definitely are not looking at like widespread power problems. But then some are going to be here, increasingly, yeah, I think a lot of us could be right in that kind of 1/4 inch type threshold. Trees sag or break, roads become icy, so not just the elevated roads, but most roads become a little slick. And then you start to get into scattered power outages. Again, not like full-on crippling ice storm like what we had in 2023, but scattered power outages. So that's what I've been telling people, like, again, do we ever want anybody to go to HEB and get like, 400 bottles of water and prepare to live indoors for 3 months? Like that, that's not what we need to do, but is it reasonable to prepare to be without power for a day, in some spots? I mean, I think it's reasonable just as a course of least regret. And then I can't completely rule out for some in the hill country. I'm especially looking at like Mason, Llano, Gillespie County. It wouldn't surprise me if some end up getting up close to a 1/2 inch or a little bit more, and that's where it starts to become more significant. That's where you start to get more into that like 2023 type realm. Widespread tree damage, roads are dangerous, widespread power outages. So mostly these two, but if things exceed expectations, this would be kind of like a reasonable worst case scenario. And then after the precip moves out, it is going to get very cold. Here's Monday morning, especially if we get a bunch of ice for some areas. And then keep in mind, what happens in North Texas is going to impact us too, because it's a north wind. So if that north wind is going to be blowing down over snowpack in Oklahoma into far north Texas, and then over sleet and ice and freezing rain, and then it will get down to us. So that's just a really cold wind. So we're expecting widespread teens in the forecast for Monday morning. If not teens, like say there's a little bit less ice, I think at least low 20s in the forecast. But this is going to be just really cold weather. Then when you factor in the wind, here's the wind chill map for Monday morning, single digits, if not below 0. So we talked about this yesterday, but the extreme cold watch was upgraded to an extreme cold warning. The National Weather Service was citing the reason for that as wind chills that could be as cold as 5 below 0 over parts of the hill country. You can see this model is printing out, say, 2 below 0, numbers like that over parts of Blanco and Gillespie County. Okay, so here's just kind of the big picture thought process right now. Weather impact alert, I've actually extended it, so I've added it through Tuesday, just because I think by Tuesday morning in Austin, there will not be travel issues anymore. But in the hill country, I think there could still be a few slick spots Tuesday. So we're going to have light to moderate freezing rain or sleet accumulation, but mainly freezing rain, but light to moderate freezing rain and some sleet accumulation. For the coldest pockets, this won't necessarily be everywhere, but for many, especially in the hill country, 48 to 72 hours at or below freezing, and air temperatures that will be in the teens. For some, that will be Sunday morning. For most of us, it's going to be Monday morning. So what we need to do right now, hopefully everyone has already done this, hard freeze preps. Again, extended freezing temperatures are a certainty. And then planning for icy travel, especially as we go late Saturday into Saturday night, and plan for isolated power outages. Again, not a crippling situation where everyone loses power. I'm not expecting that, but again, would it hurt to charge up your phone, and do stuff like that? Of course, I think that is reasonable to do. Okay, again, a lot of people have been asking me, is this going to be 2023? Is this going to be 2021? And the answer is no. Here are the ice storm numbers from 2023. I remember this one very well. This was the first big storm I covered when I became chief here at KVUE. I remember there's a sales conference room down the hallway from where I'm standing right now, and I remember at like midnight, it was like, or this was probably later, it was like 1 a.m. It was like 32.9 degrees, and I was online. I was looking at like weather bug sites, any thermometer I could find. I was looking to check the temperature, because obviously we had all this ice in the forecast, and then it was like 33, 33, 33, 33, 32, and then the icing started. And I remember I woke up, I was sleeping here, and we're in North Austin, and then I wake up really early. It's like 5 a.m. and I hear the cracking of trees, and it was the trees that were starting to fall with the ice accumulation. But that was a big one. I'll never forget that one. There was 0.69 inches of ice accumulation with the 2023 ice storm. I do not expect that even on a high-end scenario, really anybody would get that much with this system. I think again, I don't really expect this to be a major problem, but I think a reasonable, worst case scenario would be about a ½ inch for parts of the hill country. 66 hours at or below freezing. So the duration of the cold, I mean, for parts of the hill country, that could happen. I don't think it will be that long in Austin, though. And then this definitely will not in any way, shape, or form be a repeat of 2021. Now, remember, so the Arctic, this is the timeline of 2021. Arctic air got to central Texas on the 10th. And then the first thing was a freezing rain event. I also remember I lived in North Austin at the time, driving into work, and this shows you how dangerous freezing rain is. It had it had just started drizzling a minute before I got in the car, and I was driving to get here to KVUE. I was getting on 183 by McNeil, and I was on the service road, and I was going to do the U-turn to get under and get on the other side, and I didn't fully spin out, but I slid and ended up sideways in the road on just the tiniest bit of ice. I'll remember that storm too. But this first ice storm, there was a ½ inch to a ½ inch of icing, and up to 3/4 of an inch of icing in the hill country. So again, could some have that type of icing? Yes, but that was just a fraction of it. So then it got even colder. It was the duration, right? So even colder, we got these record lows, and then we had heavy snow. So we had a major ice storm, and then we had heavy snow with 3 to 8 inches of snow. Then we had a brutally cold morning down at 7 degrees. Then we had another round of ice that was also, a ½ inch plus of ice. And then we had a little bit more snow, and we were at or below freezing for, this is the record for Austin, 144 consecutive hours. So it was 7 straight days. So it's just not going to be anything remotely like that. Again, this will still be impactful. This is not going to be nothing, and I don't want to undersell it, but I definitely do not want to I don't want to oversell it. This is not going to be 2023. This is not going to be 2021, but slick travel and isolated power outages will be possible. Okay, here's the 7-day forecast. For your Saturday, we're looking at rain gradually through the day becoming freezing rain. So especially in Austin, we're dropping. It's probably late afternoon, mid to late afternoon that temperatures go below freezing, and it starts to ice in Austin, but it will be gradually getting icier through the day in the hill country. Then I have a 100% chance for freezing rain and some embedded sleet, but mainly freezing rain. Saturday night, 20% icy mix moving out Sunday. Then as far as some people have also been asking, okay, could we even see a snowflake or two? If we were, I think it would be more likely sleet, but maybe a snowflake would be at the tail end as the precip moves out. But this is not going to be a big snowstorm for us. It's going to be an ice situation. Austin, I have a high of 32 in the forecast Sunday, so especially across the hill country, I don't think it really even gets that close to freezing in the hill country Sunday afternoon. For some in the metro and then especially southeast, it might briefly get above freezing. So hopefully at least some improvement during the afternoon on Sunday, and just some sun would help a little bit too. But I think, long story short, I do still expect some icy patches into Monday. A lot of people have also been asking, are there going to be school cancellations? I don't control that, but I think it is very reasonable that there could be delays or cancellations on Monday. Aside from the precip, it's just going to be very cold. It's going to be 19 with, again, single-digit wind chills. And then Monday afternoon in Austin will go above freezing. It'll be 37, so that should put an end to any sort of icy travel issues in Austin. But for the hill country, it still might not get above freezing Monday. So then we go through another day, and we go into another hard freeze Tuesday morning, which will go down to 21 in Austin. And then everybody, including the hill country, should go above by Tuesday afternoon. So that'll be the end of our weather impact alert. Wednesday, a light freeze in the morning, 53 for the afternoon high. Thursday, I have 55 in the forecast. I'm hearing a ding over here on my phone. I'm remembering we've got these storms going on too. I need to make sure we don't have any storm alerts. Let me make sure I check that out real quick. But then as we get into and it was a special weather statement for the Kerrville area, so I'll show you that here in a second. So we're going to get milder as we go into Wednesday and Thursday. Highs will be in the 50s, but I mean, still, that's pretty chilly. It beats 32, but this is going to be a very winter-like week. And then I just want to say, this might not be what you want to hear right now, and it might end up being nothing, but we've got to watch this system on Friday too. I've looked at my iPhone weather app and I see what it says for. I like to look at it just to see, like, okay, what are people going to ask me about? And that'll be a system to watch. On Friday, is there a world where there could be another round of wintry precipitation Friday into Saturday? Yes. Far, far from a guarantee, though. It very easily could end up being nothing, but just we'll watch that for you. Okay, let's see. I'm going to show you the radar real quick. Again, we had that strong storm statement issued. All right. Been out of severe weather season for a while. Haven't had to use this bad boy. We're breaking it out for winter storm coverage tomorrow, though. Okay. Do a little radar tracking here for you, and then I'm probably going to let you go. Obviously, we've got our newscast coming up at 10, and then I'll get a game plan. If the radar is really active, we'll do another stream after our 10 o'clock, and I'm going to be here all through the night, so I'll watch those storms, obviously. Jordan and I are going to do a handoff at 2:30 just because I was telling everybody here, like, every storm like this has just some sort, yeah, man, look at that. Every storm like this has some sort of a surprise element to it. And I think the candidates for a surprise with this storm are exactly something like this. I think it would be like a rogue hail-producing severe thunderstorm or a flash flood warning. I think those are candidates for the surprises here. So they did strong storm statement. Here it is. And this is tracking towards Gillespie County. And what they're saying with it is this. Doppler radar is tracking a strong thunderstorm. This is just so odd. I'm like talking about ice accumulation, and now I'm just back in like severe weather mode. This is such an interesting system. Strong thunderstorm over Kerrville, moving northeast at 15 half-inch hail. So obviously we've got cold air coming in, and it's undercutting underneath the storm. So we're not going to have like a tornado or anything in this setup. These are going to be more like elevated. But I definitely could see some hail being put out in these storms. Let's go into the hail tracker. Hail tracker's not picking up on anything, but I mean, you can just tell from that reflectivity there that definitely could toss down some hail. I wonder if they've had any storm reports sent in. No, not that have loaded in, but again, we're going to have heavy rain and storms, and you can already see where we're going to have this training area of storms that is going to lift into the hill country. And then as far as what's going on closer to Austin, some heavier downpours out here over northern Hayes County, near Henley and Dripping Springs, and out towards Johnson City. So I'll just kind of loosely go through things one more time, and then I will let you go. It's already 9:15. Yeah. So it is 53 right now in Austin. Here's our big picture. What I want to do, actually, let's compare temperatures. So 53, wow, look at that. Mason is already down to 39. Okay. I mean, I told you guys we're into the nowcasting scenario. So let me explain what do I mean by that. So I'm going to go back to the model. So pick out where you live and look at the temperature. So we're going to take Mason, for example, 39. This model says that it should be 45 in Mason right now. So it's 6 degrees colder. This model says that it's not 39 in Mason until 11 p.m., and that's already happened now. And then, okay, so Austin, this model initializes at 54. I think it was 53. We're like one degree off. Let me go back to this. Yeah, so 1 degree off, but yeah, I mean, these numbers are dropping fast in the hill country, and I think especially for Mason County, there probably will be a transition late tonight to where the icing is going to start there over northwest Mason County. Some of these numbers, though, Llano, Burnett, you can see it's like relatively close. But these numbers also don't update like every second. They normally update at the 53rd minute of the hour, so like at 8:53. It was like the last update that we got for most of these sensors. Some of these other metro sensors will update faster. So here, let's take a look at this. So Leander's already down at 48, Round Rock's at 49. Yeah, I mean, so this is what this kind of stuff that we'll be watching. I'm going to show you one other model, the high-res run. I've been showing you mainly the extended HRRR model, the HER is what it's called. We also have the Graph, which is a model that we show a lot of times here. It's produced by IBM. Then there's a short-range, high-res version of the Graph, and sometimes this does well. It definitely can be a little inaccurate with like severe setups sometimes, but it looks really good because it updates every 15 minutes, so it's really smooth. But let's go through this. So it's got big round of storms lifting into our area. Again, radar certainly won't look exactly like this, but I do expect heavy rain and storms as we go into the early overnight. And then look, so this model I think has got how quickly temperatures are going to drop. You can see by midnight, a couple hours from now, which, I mean, it's 39 now. You don't have to drop that much farther. It's got freezing rain over northern Mason County. And then here's 2, 3. So northern Burnett County, Llano, Mason, Gillespie, changing over on the backside of this. Austin, heavy rain and storms, but this could be heavy freezing rain over the hill country. And then we're going to go 3:30. Here's 4. And then as this moves east, it's getting into warmer air. So it's outrunning the coldest air. So it's just storms. But you still see where the pink here is the freezing rain over parts of the hill country. And then here's 6 a.m. We're at that point out around, like the Leander area. There could be some icy weather there. Again, it probably wouldn't immediately make the roads like terrible, but a little bit of ice. And then this model doesn't go out very long, but this would be 9 a.m. And I'm going to go into this and we're going to look at the ice accumulation together. We're going to build this graphic real quick. Okay, so I'm going to do a few things. Let's add on the temperature. So these are the rainfall amounts. I understand this is probably not very riveting to watch. I probably should have waited to do this. Okay, so here is, we've got temperature turned on. Okay, so we got the temperatures turned on. And even this, so it's got 55. And even this is warm. I mean, even this model has it 39 degrees an hour from now. It's 39 now. Okay, so we'll keep going, keep going. So it's got Austin at 35 by 8, 34. So we're right there, where, especially some of these colder pockets in northwest Travis and western Wilco, are already at freezing in the morning. We don't have a lot of precip left, but I think in this type of setup too, like you saw how damp it was today, even just drizzle, freezing drizzle, if you just have it over a long amount of time, that can be rough. So freezing fog. These type of things can create slick conditions. So I think it's just going to be damp, and as soon as it goes below freezing, it's going to be, game on for some icy conditions to develop. Okay, well, I think we've covered everything we need to here. Oh, I was going to show you the freezing rain accumulation. I'll do that real quick. All right, so we're going to go through, and I don't have the right numbers turned on here, but So the areas in pink here are where it has some sort of ice accumulation between now and Saturday morning. So it's not going to be everywhere, but out here in the hill country, there very well could be some ice accumulation even through the overnight, mainly light ice accumulation. Okay, let's check in with our storm one more time, and then I'll hop off the stream here and we'll get ready for our newscast at 10 o'clock, which obviously we hope everybody can join us then. Make sure nothing is going on with our Gillespie County storm. Look at that thing. Yeah, so I would say this still could be, bring a small hail risk into southern areas of Fredericksburg here over the next little while. Okay, it's going to do it for this stream. I appreciate everybody tuning in. Bottom line, we've got rainy, stormy weather coming in tonight, and then through the day tomorrow, temperatures are dropping, and by afternoon into the evening, we're going to have a widespread round of ice and freezing rain coming in. So if you can, I think this weekend is a good one to just stay off the road, stay hunkered down. I think this storm has been just so well advertised. I think everybody is kind of okay, I'm just going to not leave the house this weekend. And I think that is probably a good call. So I'm going to end the stream there. You guys have a good night. Check in with us for KVUE News at 10. That's coming up about 30 minutes from now. We'll see you then.